7, 8, and 9, back to doing some factoring again. You can see that there's those squared things in there, and whenever you have those quadratic expressions, we know we're going to end up factoring. So what we want to do is try to factor the tops and the bottoms of our fractions as much as possible. Sometimes we can't do anything to them. X minus 1 doesn't have any greatest common factors, doesn't have any squared terms, so I just have to leave that as x minus 1. I'm just going to rewrite it over here. I'm going to put it in parentheses to remind myself, oh yep, that goes together. If I do the bottom of the first fraction, the bottom of the first fraction has the squared. We know we can FOIL those out. So 2 sets of parentheses, factors of x squared, x and an x. The n is a negative, so we know we have a plus and a minus. And then we want the factors of 6 that give us that minus 1 in the middle. What pair of factors for 6 can we use?
2 and 3.
2 and 3. We want the 2 to be positive and the 3 to be negative because we want the bigger one to be negative since we want a minus 1 in the middle. Then we go to the top of the next fraction. Now on the top of the next fraction, it has 2 terms, but I noticed, oh, it has a greatest common factor. I can divide the 4 out of there right away. So I'm going to factor the 4 out. 4x divided by 4 would leave me just an x. 8 divided by 4 would give me a 2. So 4 times x plus 2 is how I'm going to factor that. On the bottom, doesn't have a greatest common factor, doesn't have a squared, I can't do anything with it. It's just going to stay x minus 2 then. Again, I could put it in parentheses just to remind myself that goes together. So in this case, when I look to cancel, there's only one pair of factors I'm going to be able to cancel. There's an x plus 2 on the top and an x plus 2 on the bottom. I can get rid of that pair of factors, but that's all I'm going to be able to cancel out on this one. When I write my answer, it's x minus 1 times 4, but we know we usually like the 4 in front. It looks prettier there. So they're going to write it as 4 times x minus 1 on the top. The bottom, the order doesn't matter. You have an x minus 3 and an x minus 2. And if you put the 4 behind the parentheses, it's the same thing. It just looks weird back there.
What's the bottom going to be?
The x minus
okay.
3 and the x minus 2 that we didn't cancel out. I'll move the board up so you can see better on the next one there.
X minus 3.
So number 8, we're going to start with the top of our fraction. It does have the squared, so we know we can FOIL that out. Factors of x squared would be x and x. My signs, since the end is positive, they're both the same as the middle, and the middle's a minus, so we know it's a minus and a minus. Factors of 2 that add up to the 3 in the middle. Well, 2 only has one pair of factors. 1 times 2. That happens to add up to 3, right? We got the top factored. We got to factor the bottom. On the bottom, there's only 2 terms. Tells me look for the greatest common factor. In this case, they're both divisible by 3, right? So I'm going to take the 3 out of each of those. 3x divided by 3 is just a plain x. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So we get x plus 1. Top of my second fraction. Only 2 terms. Doesn't have a greatest common factor. I'm just going to leave that one alone. It's going to stay x plus 1, but I'm going to write it in the parentheses because it has to be grouped together. Bottom of the second fraction. Squared. I know I got my 2 sets of parentheses. Factors of x squared, x and x. My signs, positive and a negative. Factors of 6, so I end up with a plus 1 in the middle.
Two and 3.
And which one has to go by the plus sign?
2.
I want a plus 1.
Oh, 3.
The 3, the bigger one has to go by the plus sign, right? positive 3 minus 2 is the plus 1 in the middle. So the other one we had a minus 1 in the middle, and so they're just switched around. Looking to see what we can cancel. What can we cancel on this one?
The x1, x plus 1.
The x plus 1s. Anything else?
The x minus 2.
The x minus 2s, exactly. So on the top, the only thing I have left is that x minus 1. I don't need the parentheses since it's not going to be times anything else. On the bottom, we have this 3 here, and then we have the x plus 3 over there. So we get x minus 1 over 3 times x plus 3. All right, go ahead, try number 9. So on that first fraction, what did you do with that first fraction?
Just left the top alone.
Left the top alone as x plus 1.
3.
And took a 3 out of the bottom. So you got 3 times
X minus 1.
x minus 1, exactly. Next one you had to FOIL out. We know it's an x and an x. Our signs would have been
Positive
positive and a negative because the end is negative. And we want the factors of 2 that when we plug them in, we get a positive 1 in the middle. 2 and 1. The bigger number has to be by the plus sign. Positive 2 minus 1 is plus 1 in the middle. On the bottom, we know we had to FOIL that one out. And again, we have x and x. Our signs. Our signs. One of each because the end is negative, right? So positive and a negative. Factors of 3 that when we plug them in, we get a minus 2 in the middle.
1 and 2, or 1 and 3.
1 and 3, and which one has to be by the negative side?
3.
1 and 3. We know the middle one to be negative, so the bigger number had to be by the negative. So what can we cancel out of there? X plus 1, x minus 1. And that looks like about it. So our answer, x plus 2 over 3 times x minus 3.
That's way too much thinking.
We're only in the review.